Hi, Melissa. Well, Intel, like you said, is up big because the most valuable AI company just wrote them a $5 billion check. The deal has two parts. Intel builds custom CPU, central processing units, for NVIDIA's data center platforms. And then Intel also creates chips combining their processors with NVIDIA's graphics specifically for personal computers, PC. Notice what's not mentioned. Intel's foundry business. Zero manufacturing commitments in the press release thus far. The $5 billion investment is a lot. Not chump change, but only roughly 1% of NVIDIA's projected $500 billion in free cash flow over the next 4 to 5 years. So I could say maybe pocket change for Jensen Huang, but massive, massive validation for Intel, which desperately needs an AI story. The White House angle that wasn't is kind of telling. No Trump mentioned in the press release, no government officials quoted. This morning, National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett told CNBC he wasn't aware of the government encouraging this investment. Recall that the administration invested $10 billion in Intel a month ago at $20.40 a share, so already a 50% upside. AMD, though, let's talk about the laterals. AMD is down roughly, 3%? Yeah, 2.5% right now, because this really threatens their server CPU games. Then you have ARM down even more because it undermines their Nvidia partnership, specifically to CPUs. And investors are buying up semiconductor equipment stocks across the board, but they might be getting ahead of themselves because we have zero details on volume, production, timelines, and whether Intel can actually execute on any of this and how long it'll take. The best player, though, in AI just lifted the most out of favor semiconductor stock. Announcements, though, are easy, but execution is hard, especially for Intel. Nvidia doesn't write $5 billion checks lightly, but Intel still has to deliver.
Christina, analysts have been bullish on Nvidia for so long. There was never a mention that Nvidia needed this sort of partnership or was missing this part of its business. And I'm wondering why all of a sudden it is seen that Nvidia needed this and this is actually beneficial to the business model.
So two fronts. So we're talking, this is a product deal. And the interesting part is the personal computer side. Intel has about 70% of PCs, and they make the CPUs for said PCs. The fact that Nvidia is partnering with them would give them a stronghold into the PC market and also in the turn allow Intel to expand that and include AI, so AI PCs. So this is more of like a four-year time frame for something like that. The second part, which is not proven, it has to do with politics, right? You have Nvidia caught in the middle between the dynamics between China and the United States. They're often used as literally a bargaining chip. And so if Nvidia shows that they're investing on U.S. soil in an all-American company that is, manufacturing here in the United States, then that's seen as a win in President Trump's eyes. And then potentially that could be used as leverage and really help Nvidia in their dynamics with China. So that's probably more the route, but they're not going to comment on that.
And does it move the needle, Christina, for NVIDIA in terms of really diversifying their production partners? Obviously, Taiwan Semi is the core of that business there. Or is it just, as you suggest, kind of going tangential or additional to what their actual core business is and enlarging the market?
No, the goal is that eventually they could shift some of their production to Intel here in the United States. But to your point, TSMC is the one that is providing the most advanced manufacturing processes, and most of this production will happen with TSMC. The advanced packaging may happen with Intel. That's when you get a little bit more complicated. But it's possibly a big vote of confidence in the near term that perhaps maybe Intel could be the next big foundry for NVIDIA, but we're not there yet.
Why do you believe this is such a huge game changer?
Pop the champagne. I mean, for Intel. Now you have NVIDIA, godfather of AI, doubling down, and this follows, obviously, U.S. government investment. I mean, what this essentially does, it brings Intel into the AI game. You think that from a stock perspective, that changes the multiple. And, clearly, this is also going to be viewed very positively in D.C. I think that's something that could definitely help Jensen and others when it comes to China.
Dan, I do wonder, though, about Mandeep's point, this idea that this isn't NVIDIA going all in and developing their chips for the big semiconductors, the big hyperscalers at the Intel foundry. This is simply a $5 billion side project about PCs. How much is this essentially just an olive branch to the president and not an actual move of NVIDIA to try to fortify Intel's plans to become the foundry?
Yeah, look, Mandeep brings up great points as always. But look, this is also it's a doubling down on investment in the U.S. I mean, that's also what it is. Now, clearly, that obviously olive branch to Trump administration and others. But what they're also doing is when it comes to PC upgrade cycle, x86, I mean, this does give them another potential growth lever. And look, NVIDIA right now, it's NVIDIA's world, everyone else is paying rent. And they know that they're in a massive position of strength. But for Intel, I mean, think about it, you went from, call it a month ago, some worries about, in terms of the CEO potentially out. Now you get the investment from government and you have Intel, now again, NVIDIA. I mean, that is a Goldilocks scenario for Intel.
This is coming at a time when China is trying to emphasize domestic production of their own technology and really trying to create national champions there that can rival Nvidia and other U.S. tech giants. I just wonder whether it is possible to continue for the likes of Nvidia trying to push into China, trying to sell more advanced chips into that country while at the same time playing with this idea of U.S. independence from China.
Look, it's a tightwire act, but the reality is that there's one chip in the world fueling the AI revolution, and that's led by godfather of AI, Jensen Nvidia, and that's why in China, look, they could tell Chinese big tech in Beijing, don't buy Nvidia chip. That's like telling a kid, okay, don't eat the candy that's on the table. So that's the reality because they're years ahead of when you look at Huawei and others. But at the same time, I mean, Trump administration recognizes they have to strengthen AI infrastructure, AI chip making. And you look at Intel, I mean, they've gone obviously from a huge laggard. I mean, Intel, all the red tape, all the sort of black eye moments, you finally have some positives at Intel.
Gene, I'll kick it off with you. Why do you think Intel is up so much? I mean, what is a statement that you would make about this move? Is it that Intel wasn't as bad as thought? I mean, NVIDIA would surely not throw money into a failing company.
I think it's up because it's a validation. Christina talked about it. This is a massive validation. If you look at just the fundamentals and the impact to the business, it probably should be up like 5%, maybe 10% today. But this is like an order of a couple standard deviations outside of that. I do want to remind people that when Oracle ripped, it was up 40%. It's traded off about 13% from that peak. And so I suspect that we're going to get a trade-off. I do believe also that Intel is almost becoming almost this meme stock. And as was Christina kind of talked about the impact and what's driving this and what was really below the surface, I think the substance of this is this was an endorsement by NVIDIA to support a decision from the White House. I think that's the substance of it. And the stock is reacting to that. And I think that kind of plays into this a little bit of a meme stock. That is pretty negative, what I'm saying right there relative to Intel, and I do expect it to trade off. I do want to highlight that I'm still very positive on where AI is going to go. I think it will exceed high expectations, so I'm very much bullish on AI, but I think this in particular is just kind of an entertaining birth of a meme stock.
Matt, where do you stand on AMD's move lower? I mean, is it true that this partnership could actually threaten AMD?
Does it threaten them?
Make Intel more competitive?
So over the longer term, possibly. So AMD's been killing Intel on share in both PCs and servers over the last couple of years. This maybe makes it a bit harder for AMD to continue to gain share. But I mean, having said that, chip design cycles are 18 months. So everything we're getting out of this is probably 2027 and beyond. In the near term, I think there's substantial buying for all components in part to support AI, and that both companies look like they're in a better position than they were a month ago, given the pickup in demand from these large hyperscalers.
Matt, between last week's Oracle guidance and this news today, a lot of the supply chain is flying. So you have another 6 or 7% in Micron today. It's up like 40% this month. Rambus, some other names that have been noted as potentially beneficiaries of this new spending flow. Is it actually substantiated by what we really can expect to come through for these companies?
I think it's gotten to be over the last 2-3 weeks. So I've had a lot of conversations with the supply chain. It sounds like all those big buyers have come back to the memory companies, come back to the hard drive companies, even heard about better demand for compute. And it's to source components that presumably to fill out these data centers. So yeah, demand has gotten significantly better in the last month.
I have no doubt the president's happy with this move. Not on Nvidia, but on Intel, higher by almost 30% in the pre-market. Your first reaction to that deal?
Well, I mean, look, from an Nvidia perspective, I don't see a big strategic rationale given Intel has been such a big competitor over the years, except for the fact that Nvidia has a very healthy balance sheet and it's been making investments, in CoreWeave and some other cloud providers. So $5 billion is not a big amount for them given their balance sheet. And co-developing chips, to my mind, Intel's kind of ecosystem revolves around x86 and they dominate in the PC world. So that's where Nvidia can use their distribution. But the fact that they are not using them in Foundry, I mean, that just goes to show that they don't want to touch that TSMC ecosystem where they dominate. And so it's more of you have to convince the government that you're doing something about it. I mean, clearly, government has a 10% stake in Intel now. And, this was probably the best way to go about it.
What do you think Nvidia might get in return? Have you given that some thought?
Well, the PC refresh cycle, we have been waiting for that for a while.
I'm thinking more of what the president might be able to give them. Access to China, selling their high-end chips.
That's definitely on the cards. And look, getting to a monopoly position is never a good thing for a company. That's what we have learned from Google because, once you get to a monopoly position, it attracts so much attention. So to my mind, Nvidia wants to keep competitors who are distant, third or second. And so from that perspective, it's good that Intel will be a competitor. But at the same time, Nvidia still maintains the lead and they don't get classified as a monopoly.
Mike, the call just ended with the press right now. 3 main points that I'm seeing. So the first one was they said that they were working on this partnership very quietly. There was no collaboration with the White House. President Trump, they were just really announced it to them very, very recently. I know there was concerns given that the White House did invest in Intel about a month ago. So according to both leaders, the White House had nothing to do with this deal. The second part is that, yes, this collaboration is more about products specifically within data centers and PCs and not about Intel's foundry business. Lip-Bu Tan, the CEO of Intel, did say that TSMC is a great partner and we're going to continue to use TSMC. So you can see that that relationship isn't changing. TSMC is still the largest contract manufacturer, I said chip manufacturer in the world. The third point is ARM. I was able to ask a question to Jensen Huang just about ARM because Nvidia and ARM work together on CPUs, but now Nvidia is going to be working with Intel. So you saw ARM shares sell off. Jensen Huang said, and I quote, ARM shouldn't be down. And yet the share price, I thought it would have went up a little bit more, but it's still down about 4%. The CEO of NVIDIA continued to explain the relationship with ARM and how products are going to be used in robots, et cetera. So that's not, according to him, changing. And then the last point, Jensen Huang did talk about how this partnership is really going to help Intel, especially in the personal computer space, not only with the central processing units, but the graphics that are needed when we hit all of those AI PCs that are going to be coming to market. And everybody's just going to want more advanced compute on their devices. Guys?
There are comments also by Lip-Bu Tan, Christina, about Intel Foundry, about continued progress. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, he was asked specifically more about 14A. So this is an advanced manufacturing process and why NVIDIA products aren't going to be made on that. He was quite frank, saying that they're still working through. I don't have the verbatim in terms of what he said specifically, but he was just alluding to they're still working on the yields, they're improving, but that these products are still going to be made by TSMC. The packaging may happen at Intel, but the actual manufacturing will happen at TSMC. So there's still some work to be done on the more advanced manufacturing processes on Intel's side.
Yeah, so we are seeing NVIDIA announce a $5 billion investment into Intel with the per share price of around $23.28, and then also announcing some partnerships or trying to integrate some of the Intel product offerings with NVIDIA's product offerings. And some of these integrations include the NVLink, which is going to be able to improve the communications between the GPUs for NVIDIA and the CPUs that Intel has. Intel is also going to be producing and designing some CPUs, if you will, to better integrate with NVIDIA's system. So not only focusing on personal computing, but also on the data center aspect of their business here. This comes on the back of SoftBank, once again, for Intel. Investing around $2 billion. That was announced a couple of weeks ago, and the U.S. government investing $5.7 billion. So there's individuals and companies that are putting dollars to work, putting it into Intel. This is more of a national story, if you will, trying to save this business in a sense, especially the foundry side, in order to bring back domestic production or try to increase and ramp up domestic production for chips. I think this is a nice first step for right now. And this also is being perceived as, for NVIDIA, I wouldn't say, putting money to work in order to appease the administration. Maybe this kind of loosens up some of the restrictions on selling the advanced Blackwell chipsets to China. That also could be the case as well. A very small outlay when you're looking at NVIDIA's dollars being put to work when it comes to Intel, but I think the gesture itself probably carries a little bit more weight, which is why we are seeing NVIDIA up around 3%. Usually when you see these type of investments, the company that's doing the investment doesn't really see a pop because of the investment. There's nothing, So that's kind of the angle that I think a lot of investors are looking at when you're looking at NVIDIA. And then if you're seeing AMD down about almost 5% right now, so they haven't been a part of the party. It seems like the market's kind of taking it out on them and kind of re-diverting dollars back into NVIDIA and Intel.